Hi all. I've been playing this game, Aces of Thunder, for just shy of 2 weeks now. I wanted to share a couple of kind of updates and maybe address a few questions that I've been seeing popping up. So you notice right now I'm sitting in my F4U Corsair, and one of the questions that comes up is why does this plane take off from an aircraft carrier versus a lot of other planes just put you straight up in the air? And the answer is this right here. This lever, I can't interact with it, but that particular lever is the arresting hook, and underneath this plane is a hook that will drop down, and that hook is to catch on these arresting wires as you try and land on an aircraft carrier deck. So if you're in a plane that has those, you can take off from an aircraft carrier. Now, with that being said, some aircraft I know do have those arresting hooks, but still take off from straight up in the air, so I'm not sure why those do and this one doesn't, and those. Okay, let me try again. So I'm not sure why this plane does take off from an aircraft carrier, but those do not, because they're clearly equipped to do so. But as far as the two planes I've seen for sure that take off from the aircraft carrier directly, one is this one, the Corsair, and the other one is the Japanese Zero. And update number 2 is they've fixed this map, this little mission board, which I love. And now I can pick this up and move it wherever I want. And I could also look at it, hold it up here close, and I could see if anything was damaged, you'd see it here. And I could see what my armament is. I could see how much fuel, engine temperature, right now my brakes engaged, and so on. And hell, you could even stick it outside the cockpit if you want. And if I could take off and fly, and that will stay right there with me as I'm flying around, just a little silly. But I usually put it somewhere over here, where it's not in the way of any instruments I want to read. Okay, so with that, let's hop back out of the aircraft for a moment. So you can see it from here. There's the arresting hook, that black and white striped post. You can see it connects right at the top of the wheel strut, and you can see the hook is sticking out, just kind of hanging there in that little notch in the tail of the plane. So this aircraft has one. The Douglas aircraft ones do have it as well. You can see here this one on the SBD-3. And that one, you could definitely see it for sure on this SB-2C-4. And on this plane, also every time I see this plane and I see that 30 cal machine gun, which just seems wild to me, and the first thing I think every time I see this is, hey Dad, can I have a 30 cal for Christmas? And the answer would be, no kid, you'll shoot your tail off. So it just seems wild, and how would they keep from accidentally destroying their own aircraft with this setup? Okay, so I've looked also at the Japanese Zeros, but this plane sits so low, I've literally tried crawling around on the ground, but I can't get low enough to see where it is under this plane. But this is one that you can take off from an aircraft carrier. Let me see what else. I also wanted to show a cool little, this is kind of a nerdy little detail, but let's take a test flight in this BF-109 Messerschmitt. Let that load. Test flight. And for me, I keep auto trim disabled just because I like the more realistic experience. And check out this cockpit. It's wild to me that this cockpit opens sideways. So I can grab this and pull this closed. And what I'm about to point out is watch the leading edge of that wing on the right, or there also is one on the left. And you see towards the far end of the wing, there's that little slat over there. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out. So let's get up in the air so I can show you. Okay, so we're up now. Let's just build up some speed. And when you do this test flight in the Messerschmitt, you can shoot down those war balloons if you want. It's good machine gun practice. Okay, now what I want you to watch is I'm going to pull hard back and right on the stick and watch the leading edge of that wing. I think that's wild, and I love that the developers modeled this into the aircraft. And what that is I think it's called the stall vane or something to that effect. Basically what's happening is if I pull hard in that direction, the aircraft that wing wants to stall out, in which case the plane is going to go into a spin. So with that slat pushes forward to help improve the aerodynamics and prevent that stall from happening. And that's specific to this aircraft. That's the only one I know of that has that, or at least in this game. Like, I'm gonna see if it happens on the other ring. Yeah, it happened on that one too. So anyway, and a lot of people are complaining about, why do I suddenly go into a stall? If you've been shot, you look at sometimes you'll be missing parts of the rear of the plane, such as the rear vertical fin or your rudder, or you might be missing an aileron or flaps. There's, all kinds of reasons, and not the least of which would be, pilot error. I know I've gotten into tail spins and, spun out of the sky more times than I can count. But yeah, so I wanted to point out those few things, and I think that's it. If I think of anything else, might help if I raise my landing gear. Because I also wanted to talk about a very specific type of stall that is unique to the World War I aircraft, in particular the Sopwith Camel, since people are asking about why did I get into a tailspin. Okay, so this is the Sopwith Camel, and the first thing I want to point out is regarding this plane specifically is take note of that radial engine on the front. That becomes important because that radial engine is essentially acting like a 150-ish horsepower gyroscope on the front of the plane. So if you're experiencing tail spins or flat stalls where it just suddenly falls out of the sky, fall straight down like a brick, sometimes it's because you are in what's called a gyroscopic stall, and what's happening is there's not enough airflow over the wings, and there's too much gyroscopic forces being produced by the engine. So the gyroscopic forces of the engine are stronger than the air flowing over the wing, and that causes the plane to go into a stall. And it's kind of I guess a somewhat famous quirk of this plane that the pilots had to deal with. And now let's take a test flight. I just want to point out a couple of before we do, let's come over here and check this out. This is a nerdy little detail that I saw this little weird propeller on the back of the wheel strut, and you notice there's another one on the wing strut just to the right of the cockpit. There's one there, and I saw those like, what the heck is that? So I had to do some research to figure out what that is. So let's hop in the cockpit. Okay, so you'll notice here's this propeller, and yes, it does start spinning when you take off, and it's connected to this little pump and then copper tubing which runs through the cockpit here, and it routes all around, and there's also this little hand pump here. So I found out what that is apparently is a air pressurized fuel system. When you're flying, these propellers push air through this tubing, which keeps I guess the fuel tank, which looks like it's probably behind me, and it keeps that pressurized so that the fuel flows correctly to the engine. And what's wild is if the pilot sitting here on the ground or in the air under low airflow situations, he would have to manually grab a hold of this pump, and you work that pump to repressurize. It's like, can you imagine you're trying to fly a plane and you have to like switch hands, grab it with my left hand, which I'm terrible at flying with my left hand, and then and then work this pump to repressurize your fuel system. To me, that is just bonkers, but this was a very good plane apparently for its day, and highly regarded once you knew its quirks. So okay, so I'm about to take off in the Camel, and let me move this out of the way, and watch the nose of the plane when I give it some throttle. You notice you can immediately see that nose twist. It does it when I'm accelerating. That nose will start to twist left. When I'm decelerating, it'll twist right. And that's so if you're taking off in one of these and you have auto trim disabled, which I do usually, don't just jam that throttle all the way forward like I used to do. I give it about half throttle until I have some airspeed built up to counteract those gyroscopic twist forces. And then now that I have some airspeed, I'll increase the throttle, and that gives me a much smoother takeoff. So another little tip, hope that helps. Okay, so I'm up in the air in the Camel, and first of all, there's that air pump I was talking about, and I'm at about 2,200 feet, or 2,200 feet, and I want to try and throw the plane around a little bit, see if I could recreate that gyroscopic stall I was talking about. So I'm going to start climb, bank left, try and throw it right, and I could already feel the nose is fighting me and wants to go down. Let's try it again. Climb left, try and brake hard right, and again that nose is wanting to drop. Let's try a roll. Okay, so the bottom followed by hard right, and that's fine. I'm going to do the same thing, but left next time. And I can hear that engine straining there. And then throw it right. And I can feel the plane shake a bit, but it's still so far dealing with it pretty well. Of course, you know, when you want to show something on purpose, it won't do it. When you're fighting and trying to stay alive, it'll happen every time. It's just the luck of the draw. And there we have it. Yeah, so now it's in a gyroscopic stall where, watch this, it just falls out of the sky like a brick. And the first thing I do is I let go of the yoke, and I try and use the rudder. Right now I'm spinning left, so I've got the rudder hard right, hoping to recover. And there we go. I did have enough altitude to recover in this case. As soon as that nose pitched down towards the ground, that's your chance. That's when you then take the yoke and gently try and climb out of that fall. Because once the nose is pointed at the ground, I've got enough airflow over the wings that you could start to regain control. So I hope that helps. That's one very specific case that's specific to this airplane. I think the Fokker DR1 might also have that issue. I don't fly it much, so I can't say for sure, but I do know that's another radial engine like this airplane is. So I hope that helps, and till next time, peace.